I was Alexander's stand-in for 7 years. He finally agreed to marry me, but what I received in the marriage certificate wrote someone else's name. Alexander still treats me like this. Eleanor, this is His Majesty's intention. Stop messing around. I've waited for 7 years. What's the difference for just this moment? This time I won't cry or make a scene. Only on the day Alexander marries his bride, a cold coffin will be carried out. When I saw the name on the marriage certificate, I felt completely frozen. Before I could even ask, Alexander's explanation lightly fell into my ears. Eleanor, this is His Majesty's command. Don't make a scene. I'm making a scene. Alexander promised to marry me. I waited for him for 7 years. The estate was attacked the night before. I almost lost my life to protect Alexander. My right shoulder was pierced by an arrow. He had been hesitating before. This time he finally agreed to enter the palace to seek a marriage certificate. But what I received was his marriage certificate with someone else. The name written on it is very familiar to me. Lady Victoria is called Victoria. She is the one Alexander couldn't have in his youth. 7 years ago, Alexander had just brought me back to the estate, and there were rumors. They said he was treating me as a substitute for Lady Victoria. Later on, those gossiping servants were punished by Alexander. At that time, I thought I was clever and capable, and I was still Alexander's savior. I was convinced that he brought me back to the estate because he liked me, and also to repay the favor. I never considered there could be other reasons. Now I understand. The marriage certificate in my hand hit me like a bolt from the blue. He has never forgotten Victoria. You know what? The incident at the estate was actually orchestrated by Lady Victoria behind the scenes. If I hadn't quickly helped Alexander block an arrow last night, he might have already lost his life. I interrogated the captured assassin overnight. That's how I found out the matter was actually related to Lady Victoria. Let me finish. A hint of coldness flashed in Alexander's originally calm eyes. At that moment, the guard reported. The assassin interrogated last night had his tongue cut out. He is already dead. I shuddered suddenly. Then it hit me. I looked at Alexander in shock. You knew the assassin was Lady Victoria's man all along. You are protecting her. Alexander dismissed the guard. A faint, almost imperceptible smile crossed his face. He said softly, "Lower your voice. If someone hears us, more lives will be lost." I felt a chill in my heart. Only then did I understand why the servants in the estate had changed their faces these past few days. The assassin from the night before. Alexander spared none of them. It turns out he did all this, all to help Lady Victoria cover up. Everyone says General Alexander is a cold-hearted person, but he is particularly gentle and considerate towards me, so I never believed those rumors. But now, I finally saw his ruthless side. For the first time, I felt afraid. My voice became hoarse and trembling. I couldn't help but ask, "Why? She wants to kill you. Why are you still protecting her?" Alexander's eyes were as dark as midnight, yet inside, there was a kind of tenderness I had never seen before. He said, "My Victoria, she's jealous." Then he said again, "She doesn't want to kill me. She wants to kill you." I deliberately stood in the path of the arrow. I just wanted to get hurt to make her feel pain. Alexander paused, staring at my wound that was bleeding from emotional turmoil. He furrowed his brow gently, but he didn't expect. "In the end, you were the one who blocked that arrow for me." A buzzing sound filled my head. The pain in my right shoulder suddenly intensified. It felt like a spike was piercing my bone. It was simply excruciating. About the attack that night. Actually, it's just a little trick between Alexander and Victoria. I fought hard to protect them. Instead, it made me seem inconsiderate. Alexander tested Victoria's feelings for him. He actually used my life as a bargaining chip. My 7-year relationship with Alexander. In the end, it turned out to be a complete farce. I'm utterly exhausted. With trembling hands, I handed the marriage certificate to Alexander. I let my wound split open. Blood stained my shoulder. Since you two lovers have ended up together, what am I supposed to be? Alexander took the silk handkerchief from my waist. He gently wiped away the blood from my wounds like before, but he didn't look into my eyes. When the pain was severe, I heard him say, "Eleanor, I've waited for 7 years. What's the difference in waiting a little longer?" I wanted to speak, but my throat was so dry that no sound came out. Alexander thought I would act like before, getting jealous and throwing a tantrum, causing a huge uproar and even running away from home. But this time, I didn't make a fuss at all. I didn't even shed a tear. I just took off the jade pendant from my waist, and had a servant deliver it to Prince Jonathan's residence. To speak to Prince Jonathan, I agreed. After saying this, when I returned to my room, my complexion had turned pale from excessive blood loss and agitation, as white as paper. I had someone call for a doctor, but after waiting for a long time, I didn't see even a shadow. Lily was by my bedside, anxiously shedding tears. The doctor had actually arrived at the estate long ago, but he had been held up by the people in General Alexander's courtyard, so he hadn't come over for a long time. I felt a chill in my heart. Struggling with my weak body, I pushed away the obstruction and rushed out the door. I hadn't gone far when I heard a woman's clear laughter coming from the Eight Immortals pavilion. The woman in the pavilion had features somewhat resembling mine, but her skin was glowing white, holding a white peony in hand, draped in jewels, both beautiful and luxurious. I wore a loose white silk dress. It made me look particularly thin and haggard. Victoria shone like the sun. I was merely dust beneath her brilliance. Dr. Zhou, whom I invited, knelt on the ground, continuously flattering her, saying how good Victoria's pulse was. Victoria listened with delight. He took silver ingots from Alexander's purse. One after another, he rewarded him. Alexander looked at her gently. He ordered a servant to bring a box of silver ingots for Victoria to play with, but as the new favorite of the court, to please His Majesty, he had already donated the silver and rewards from the estate to the disaster-stricken Texas. Now the Alexander estate's storeroom has no money. They can only rely on selling fields and shops to get by. For the past 6 months, I have been working hard to manage the remaining shops. Little by little, I made up for the shortfall in my dowry savings. I barely maintained the Alexander estate's facade, but now Alexander is spending lavishly to please Victoria. He is throwing around a lot of money, the money that Victoria casually gives as tips. But it's all the savings I've worked hard for. I really can't stand it anymore. I stepped forward to question, is there no imperial physician in the palace? Why did Lady Victoria specifically come to the Alexander estate to see a doctor? Victoria rested her chin on her hand. She looked at me with great interest. Her gaze carried the unique arrogance and cunning of royalty. The imperial physicians in the palace are so boring. It's much more fun to take from others. I understand. The taking that Victoria mentioned is not just directed at Dr. Zhou. It is also about Alexander. Victoria clearly knew that Alexander liked her before, but she didn't care at all. Now I helped Alexander rise from a mere soldier to a newly esteemed general in the court. He is enjoying great success. It should have been a natural progression to become a couple, but she suddenly changed her mind and took Alexander away from me. I really want to slap her. Alexander stood up directly and blocked Victoria. He said Victoria was just joking and told me not to take it to heart. Alexander looked at me. That's when I realized my face was pale. I could barely stand. He explained again. Victoria didn't mean to block the doctor. It was her asthma that suddenly acted up, just as the doctor entered the estate. So they let the doctor check her first. Victoria stood up. Feigning formality, she gave me a bow and said, "Thank you, Eleanor, for saving my life. My sister is so understanding. She definitely won't hold it against me, right?" Before I could answer, Alexander spoke up first. "She won't. Eleanor understands reason the best. She knows what's important and what's not. She has it all figured out." What a statement about what's important and what's not. I shook my head with a wry smile. In Alexander's eyes, I have never been important. That night, bandits suddenly attacked New York. The Alexander estate was also breached by them, but Alexander was patrolling the imperial city. He didn't come back to see me at all. He said, "As a general, one should prioritize national affairs to protect the safety of the royal family." That night, I alone held the gate tightly with the servants from the estate. I held out the entire night. Only then did I wait for reinforcements to arrive, to save my life. At that time, I foolishly thought Alexander was truly loyal to the country. He didn't care about personal feelings. Now I understand. What he wanted to protect was not the imperial city. It was clearly Victoria, who was drinking and listening to music on the city tower that night. No wonder during the day, when Alexander came back to the estate to take care of me, the smell I vaguely caught was not the blood of fighting, but a faint scent of powder and wine. Moreover, Alexander and I were invited by the Marquis of Chingen to the Lantern Festival. In the garden, a horse got startled and charged towards the women's viewing stand. Everyone was scared and scattered in all directions. Alexander picked up a spear and interrupted the horse's hoof. He turned around and carried Victoria down from the chaotic stand. The guards were stunned for a moment before reacting. They quickly surrounded to maintain order. They helped the ladies down from their horses one by one. The horse that Victoria was on was not startled. Alexander protected her. Not even the hem of her dress got dirty. But I fell off the stand in the midst of the chaos. The snow water soaked my shoes and socks. My dress got dirty too. My hair was a mess. Even my beloved Rose's hairpin broke into 2 pieces. Alexander saw that I was hurt. He hurried over to help me up. I was still in shock at that time. I didn't notice Victoria standing behind Alexander. That mocking look on Victoria's face, surrounded by maids. Later, I cried while holding the broken Rose's hairpin. I asked Alexander to buy me another one like a child. Alexander just casually brushed it off. The next day, he brought back a peony hairpin. He said, "Roses are beautiful, but they can't compare to the grandeur of peonies." Now I see the white peony in Victoria's hand and the peony pattern on her dress. Finally understood. My heart aches intensely. The peony hairpin on my bun feels like a red-hot iron burning my skin. It hurts so much that I can hardly bear it. I slowly raised my hand to take off the hairpin. I said hoarsely, "Priorities." Now I finally understand. Upon hearing my words, Alexander finally felt relieved. It's good that you can understand. Moreover, when it comes to healing and recovery, waiting a little longer doesn't matter. Victoria tossed the last coin at my feet. Dr. Zhou hurried over to squat down and pick it up. Victoria let out a cold laugh. "Eleanor, my illness has been treated. The doctor returns it to you." I lowered my head and quietly looked at him. "Speak softly. I don't want it anymore." Victoria couldn't hear clearly. She asked again, "What did you say?" I raised my head to look at Victoria. The peony hairpin in my hand slipped from my sleeve. It fell to the ground and broke, just like the jade hairpin that was shattered by a horse on Christmas festival day. I slowly repeated. I said, "I don't want it anymore. Alexander, I don't want it anymore." Suddenly, there was a clap of thunder in the sky. Startled, a few birds flew away. In the blink of an eye, heavy rain began to fall. "Victoria, your health is poor. You can't get caught in the rain. Come back to the house with me." I saw Alexander draping his cloak over Victoria. He wrapped his arm around her shoulder and walked towards the pavilion. I also saw Victoria turn her head back. She smiled at me contemptuously like a victor. Then she casually tossed Alexander's empty purse into the lotus pond. The raindrops hit the purse. It quickly sank into the water. I was shivering from the cold and the heavy rain. I handmade that money pouch for Alexander, stitch by stitch. I come from a family of merchants. I can't express my feelings through music, chess, calligraphy, or painting. What I value the most is wealth. So I personally sewed a particularly large money pouch to give to him. I even smiled and told him, "I will ensure he has a steady flow of wealth. The money pouch will always be full." I can't do embroidery. The pattern of gold ingots on the money pouch is crooked. Alexander frowned when he looked at it, but he couldn't resist my persistent coaxing. He had no choice but to carry it every day. Looking back now, Alexander probably uses the money pouch I embroidered every day, spending the money I earned to please the person he truly likes. My rough craftsmanship made Victoria recognize that the money pouch was made by me at a glance. Today, I intentionally caused such a scene, from stopping the doctor to running out of silver, and then throwing away the wallet. Every cut she made struck right at my most painful spot. Lily hurriedly ran over with an umbrella, gently wiping the rain off my body. Her eyes filled with concern. Clearly, The paper umbrella blocked the heavy rain, yet my face was still wet. I reached out to touch the corner of my eye. It was warm there. My voice was a bit hoarse, with a hint of a sob. "Lily, it hurts so much." Lily was also anxious. Teardrops fell down. "Eleanor, let's go. Leave this place." I didn't say anything. Suddenly asked, "When will Alexander and Lady Victoria get married?" Lily was stunned for a moment. She answered, "On the 7th of next month." I slowly raised my head, gazing at the gray sky. I said with a wry smile, "The 7th? What a nice day." For 7 years, I have been visiting the best fortune teller in town every month to find a good date for me and Alexander. I'm always following Alexander, constantly whispering in his ear how wonderful life is. If only someone would marry me that day. Alexander always treats it as if he didn't hear. He always finds excuses to reject me. There will be a battle that day. We can't get married. Enemies might come that day. We can't get married. That day is the Memorial Day for my uncle's wife's family. We can't get married. Later, the old fortune teller already has 3 children. Alexander still hasn't come to marry me. The old fortune teller smiled and said to me, "My dear, you come to have your fortune told every month, but why hasn't your beloved married you yet? Maybe it's time to give up." I slipped a few coins into his hand, smiling, with joy in my eyes but a hint of sadness. "It will happen soon. It will happen soon. Let's have one more reading." A month and a half ago, that was my last time consulting him. He said that the 7th of next month is the most suitable day for a wedding. After that day, I was severely injured. I lay in bed for half a month. The Alexander estate seems to have completely forgotten about me. They are busy preparing for the wedding. Even red lanterns and silk were hung at my door. The servants in my courtyard have all been summoned to help. Now the whole courtyard is left with just me and Lily. In the evening, I finished my medicine and was resting. Suddenly, the door was pushed open. Victoria barged in with a few maids. Lily helped me sit up, while angrily standing up for me, and I kept staring at Victoria. I didn't say a word, because when she came today, she was wearing a wedding dress. The red wedding gown was embroidered with golden patterns. She wore sparkling jewelry on her head. Her lips were painted with bright red lipstick. Every smile looked exceptionally charming, although her hair accessories were magnificent and dazzling. But the wedding dress looks simple and elegant. It does not lose its elegance. Victoria walked over to my bed with a smile. She opened her arms and twirled around. She smiled and asked me, "Eleanor, what do you think of me in this wedding gown?" Lily couldn't hold back. Regardless of the other's status, she said angrily, "It's ugly. It doesn't look good." "What does trying on a wedding dress have to do with my Eleanor? It's so late, yet you're bothering my Eleanor. Can't you see we are already resting?" Lily said loudly. Victoria was scolded by her, yet there wasn't a hint of displeasure on her face. On the contrary, she smiled even more broadly. Her enchanting eyes were always watching me. Looking at my increasingly pale face, she gently asked, "Eleanor, you tell me, does this wedding gown look good on me?" Alexander made me over a dozen wedding gowns, but after trying them all on, I still think this one is the best. Women understand women the best, so I want to ask you to take a look for me. Is this really good looking or not? I silently looked at the wedding gown she was wearing. Her face was pale. That was made by my mother stitch by stitch. 7 years ago, I was helping Alexander leave home. Before he left, my mother worked day and night for 3 days and nights. Only then did she finish this wedding gown. My mother told me, in the future, the road will be long. She wouldn't be able to see me get married with her own eyes. So she made this wedding gown by hand, for me to wear when I get married. It would be like she was right there with me. I kept the wedding gown at the bottom of the dowry box. I have taken good care of it all this time. I didn't expect it to be there for 7 years. Until today, it actually appeared on Victoria. I finally couldn't contain the anger inside me. I stood up from the bed. I tightly grabbed Victoria's arm. I kept asking her, "Where did this come from? I asked you where this piece of clothing came from." Victoria was startled by me. She quickly regained her composure. She lowered her head and pretended to closely examine the dragon and phoenix pattern embroidered on the cuffs. She said slowly, "Of course, it was given to me by Alexander. Although it looks quite simple, the embroidery is very intricate. It looks almost real." She patted my trembling shoulder and said, "Eleanor, why don't you learn embroidery properly from your mother? The pattern on these cuffs is really far from what's on your purse. It's really lacking." I tightly grasped her wrist. My nails dug into her delicate skin. She frowned in pain, but she didn't pull away. You clearly know that this was made for me by my mother. Why would I wear it to marry Alexander?" Victoria said to me with a smile. "I've said it before, it's more fun to take things by force." I hadn't even opened my mouth yet. Alexander rushed over in a hurry. He pushed me aside. He looked down at the bleeding wound on Victoria's wrist. His face was filled with concern. "Eleanor, don't go too far. I can't stand steady." Thanks to Lily supporting me, I barely managed not to fall. "I'm being unreasonable. Alexander, take a good look. Who is really bullying whom?" Alexander held Victoria in his arms. He paused as his gaze swept over her wedding gown. Surprise flashed in his eyes, but he quickly regained his composure. "My mother passed away 4 years ago. I was in Chicago helping Alexander with troop deployments at that time. This wedding gown is the only keepsake my mother left me. Alexander knows how much I cherish it. This is not something he gave to Victoria. She stole it. But even so, Alexander still protects her. Eleanor, this wedding dress is for Victoria. It's just a piece of clothing. Let her be." I heard Alexander say this with my own ears. It felt like my heart was being cut with a knife. The pain took my breath away. My nose tinged with bitterness. So what am I? Alexander didn't look at me. He didn't say a word either. I spoke again. "Alexander, let me go." He suddenly stopped. Then he raised his head and stared into my eyes. His voice was cold and hard. It felt like he was commanding me. "No, you can't leave." Victoria glanced at Alexander. The smile on her face slightly froze, but quickly returned. She still smiled and said to me, "Eleanor, you can't leave. You still need to attend our wedding. Without you, the wedding won't be complete." Alexander realized he had said the wrong thing. He held Victoria even tighter and added, "Right, you have to watch us get married." I was taken aback for a moment. A forced smile appeared on my face. "Okay, I will watch you get married." Victoria heard the satisfying reply. Only then did she leave with Alexander. I watched their figures fade away. My expression was calm. I said softly, "Lily, please help me prepare a coffin." The 7th day of the first month, the whole street was adorned with lights and decorations. It was extremely festive. Red silk flower balls hung from the eaves and corridors. As far as the eye could see, everything was red. White veils gently swayed in the wind, like the morning glow reflecting on the sea of clouds. People came and went to watch the festivities. Everyone was in high spirits. They all rushed to see this grand wedding. Now the most prominent General Alexander and the talented Lady Victoria in the court. Everyone praised them as a match made in heaven. But among the crowd, someone whispered, "Isn't it said that General Alexander has a female strategist he grew up with?" "Yeah, I heard that the general's military achievements over the years are all thanks to her help. I heard General Alexander has been engaged to her for a long time. Why is he suddenly marrying Lady Victoria?" Sigh. He is now a great general. Why would he care about his former fiancée? If I were in his place, I would choose Lady Victoria too. These idle gossip quickly drowned out by the festive sound of the Swana. No one cares where the abandoned woman went. Everyone is crowded behind the wedding procession, desperately scrambling for the coins thrown from the wedding carriage. From the palace to the Alexander estate, people are packed all along the way. Everywhere is noisy and bustling. It's very lively. At this moment, a low, mournful sound of the Swana suddenly echoed from the backyard of the Alexander estate. The The sound was sorrowful and long. It was completely different from the lively wedding music ahead. Everyone is waiting at the front door for the newlyweds to return. No one noticed that a cold coffin was quietly brought out from the back door. White flower petals and joss paper covered the back alley. The white spirit banner was lifted by the wind. Compared to the red lanterns hanging at the entrance, it looked particularly eye-catching. Alexander, dressed in a groom's outfit, rode at the front. His usually cold face looked a bit more amiable today, but as they approached the Alexander estate, he ran into a funeral procession head-on. Victoria in the flower palanquin heard the maid's words. She muttered unhappily, "What a buzzkill." Alexander frowned. He remained silent. He just let the wedding procession continue forward. If it were in the past, he would have had someone drive away the obstruction long ago. But this time, he caught sight of the roses carved on the coffin. His heart felt inexplicably heavy. He couldn't quite explain why he felt uncomfortable. The two processions met on the street. The red silk and auspicious cloth brushed against the coffin. Bright peony petals fell onto the white funeral garments. Paper money was blown by the wind. It floated past Alexander's horse's hooves. The sound of the funeral swana contrasted sharply with the festive music of the phoenix and 100 birds. Two completely different processions passed each other on the busiest street in New York. At that time, Alexander did not notice. The little girl crying sadly in the funeral procession was Lily. After Alexander married Victoria, Victoria was arranged to rest in the new house. Alexander was called by several brothers from the army to drink. At that moment, a little maid came to find Alexander. She whispered to him, "General, Eleanor has left." Upon hearing it was about Eleanor, Alexander immediately frowned. His expression turned grim. The little maid stammered, hesitating to continue. At this moment, Alexander's friends pulled him to drink again. Alexander coldly asked, "Where did she go?" "She probably ran away from home again. No wonder we didn't see her today." "Let her be. I'm not going to pay attention to her. She'll come back on her own tomorrow." The maid still wanted to say something, but Alexander didn't want to listen anymore. After a few drinks, he simply pushed the matter out of his mind. He focused on enjoying this wonderful evening. In the evening, Alexander returned from the banquet. He found Victoria asleep by the bed. He didn't wake her up. He went to the window and had a drink of water. Looking up, he saw the roses blooming beautifully in the moonlight. This suddenly reminded him of the first time he met Eleanor. That day, he was shot by an ambush set by bandits. He fell off the bridge. The rushing river made him dizzy. Just when he thought he was about to die, he saw a pair of small, slender hands reaching out to him. He remembered. That day, Eleanor was wearing a blue-green dress. Her face was thin, still carrying a childlike innocence. In the freezing cold of December, she threw herself into the bone-chilling river. She clung to his arm tightly. Such a frail girl. Where did she get such strength? She managed to pull him back from the brink of death. Alexander was taken home to recover. He slowly realized that Eleanor was very different from ordinary girls who never stepped out of their homes. Although she didn't understand music, chess, calligraphy, or painting, she was well versed in business and military strategy. Interestingly enough, she resembled Victoria in some ways. That day, he picked a rose and asked her if she would leave with him. The young girl blushed. She tucked the rose behind her ear. With her head down, she dared not look at him. She asked softly, "Will you marry me?" Alexander was taken aback for a moment, but he nodded and agreed. "I will." Later, Alexander was no longer a mere soldier in the army. He rose all the way to the rank of colonel. Eventually, he became the general commanding thousands of troops. Gradually, he seems to rely on Eleanor less and less. He doesn't know when it started. Her occasional acts of coquettishness, that innocence that once seemed charming to him, now it feels a bit annoying to him. Moreover, he is now a renowned general, while Eleanor is just the daughter of an ordinary merchant. So he has been dragging out a wedding that will never happen. Until one time when the palace held a banquet, he met Victoria, the once proud princess who wouldn't even glance at him. Surprisingly, she came over to toast him. At that moment, a startled bird flew by. It interrupted his thoughts. Alexander felt a bit restless. He thought he might be drunk. Otherwise, Why would he think of Eleanor on his wedding night? He recalled what the maid had said before. After thinking about it, I put on my coat. I went straight to Eleanor's yard. It was late at night. The Alexander estate, bustling during the day, was now particularly quiet. Alexander walked over under the moonlight. As he approached Eleanor's yard, he noticed white flower petals and joss paper on the ground. Suddenly, he felt a tightness in his heart. He quickened his pace. Along the way, he kept thinking about the funeral procession he encountered during the wedding. Eleanor's yard was eerily silent. Not a single shadow could be seen. The roses that had bloomed beautifully were now just bare, withered branches and leaves. The lights in the room were off. A small white lantern hung at the door. It swayed gently in the night breeze. Alexander stood frozen in place. Suddenly, he kicked open the low gate. He saw that the soil in the middle of the yard was loose and crumbling. There was a rectangular imprint on the ground. It looked like this, as if a coffin had once been placed there. Alexander's mind buzzed with shock. His fingers couldn't stop trembling. Suddenly, he ran out like a madman. He shouted hoarsely, "Someone come!" The quiet night was shattered by this shout. The lights of the Alexander estate turned on one by one. Soon, the yard was filled with kneeling servants. They were trembling in fear. No one knew why the general was so furious on his wedding night. Alexander suddenly drew his sword from the guard's waist. He held it directly against the neck of the maid who came to find him during the day. The tip of the blade had already pierced half an inch into the skin. Blood oozed out. Alexander now resembled an uncontrollable beast. His eyes were bloodshot. Veins were bulging. The pressure he exuded was suffocating. "Speak quickly. Where did Eleanor go?" Alexander lifted the maid's chin with his sword, forcing her to look at him. The maid trembled all over. Her tears couldn't stop flowing. Her voice was intermittent. "Miss Eleanor is already gone. In the past half-month, her body has become weaker. This morning when I went to deliver food, I found her lying in bed. She had already passed away." Her words were unfinished. Alexander's sword had already cut across her throat. In the blink of an eye, a living person fell down. Absolutely impossible. Alexander's voice was hoarse. With red eyes, he scanned everyone present, clearly unable to believe this fact. In the end, everyone lowered their heads and knelt down. In trembling voices, they said together, "Please accept the general's condolences." At that moment, Alexander finally fully believed this matter. He felt as if he had been drained of life. Suddenly, he slumped down to the ground. He felt that something important inside him was gone, both anxious and confused. His lips trembled. He shouted in a hoarse voice, "Even if she is gone, we must find the body. Even if I have to turn the earth upside down, I will find her." I opened my eyes. I saw a refined and elegant man standing by the bed. He was looking at me with concern. He realized I was awake. His tightly clenched fist slowly relaxed. After I got out of bed, I respectfully bowed to the man. I said, "Thank you, Prince Jonathan." My acquaintance with Prince Jonathan was purely accidental. He appreciated my talent. Before leaving, he gifted me a purple wisteria jade pendant. He also said, "As long as you are willing, you can come find me anytime." Back then, Alexander was just a lowly military lieutenant. Compared to Prince Jonathan, he was simply worlds apart. But at that time, my heart was all about Alexander. I politely declined Prince Jonathan's kindness. I only accepted his jade pendant out of courtesy. Little did I expect that one day, this jade pendant would actually come in handy. During the past half-month of my recovery, I have been secretly in contact with Prince Jonathan. I arranged this plan to fake my death and escape. I knew long ago that Alexander wouldn't let me go easily. Although he likes Victoria, he also has feelings for me. Only by faking my death can I completely disappear from Alexander's side. I have said it before, the 7th day of the first month is a particularly good day. This is the auspicious day I specifically chose. So, I decided to end my life on the day of Alexander's wedding. As the saying goes, double happiness arrives. Look at my courtesy. Prince Jonathan wanted to help me but felt it was inappropriate. He took out a fan to support my hand, helping me to stand up. He said there's no need for formalities. It is my fortune that you came to see me. Prince Jonathan, I am grateful for your kindness. I am willing to help you, but I will not have any other. My words were not finished. Prince Jonathan suddenly interrupted me. I understand, Eleanor. I will not force you to do anything. First and foremost, you are yourself. Only then are you a retainer of Prince Jonathan. His eyes are clear. He speaks sincerely and gently. He doesn't carry any royal airs. Instead, he feels like an old friend. But we had actually only met once before. That was at the Christmas festival when I first arrived in New York. Alexander didn't want to go shopping with me, so I put on a fox mask. Dressed as a man, I sneaked out. In the tea house, I ran into Prince Jonathan, who was out in plain clothes. At that time, the storyteller in the tea house was narrating the story of General Da's great defeat of the enemy at Shiyu Pass. I had drunk too much. I quietly mumbled that there were issues with the battle formation. At first, Prince Jonathan thought someone was just drunk and babbling, but the more he listened, the more sense it made. Before I left, he stopped me. He asked if I would be willing to take the imperial examination and pursue an official career. He said he would be willing to help me. I was quite drunk at the time. I simply couldn't take in what he was saying. Suddenly took off the mask. Not caring about the differences between men and women, tiptoed closer to him. I stared at him with drunken eyes and asked, "This young man, take a good look. I'm a girl, after all. Doesn't it look that way?" Prince Jonathan was taken aback for a moment. I saw his throat move. He was so surprised that he didn't speak for a long time. After a while, he suddenly smiled. Seeing him smile, I also broke into a smile. Under the lights, the two smiling faces were like brilliant fireworks. As if time had stopped. The scene from our youth. Who would have thought he had kept it in his heart all along? From that day on, the Alexander estate was missing a girl named Eleanor, and Prince Jonathan had gained a mysterious guest, named Flora. After leaving Alexander, the heavy stone that had been pressing on my heart finally disappeared. But Alexander went mad. Everyone in New York is talking about it. General Alexander did not enter the bridal chamber on his wedding night. Instead, he mobilized a team of elite soldiers to search the world for a woman. The woman's name was Eleanor. She had been his lover for 7 years. When Alexander rushed to the outskirts of the capital that night, the coffin had already been burned to ashes in the Great Fire. From then on, there was no longer any Eleanor in the world. It is said that Alexander searched through the ashes for a long time on his knees. His hands were burned, leaving behind scars all over his hands, except for the gold bracelet I always wore in my lifetime. He found nothing at all. Later he returned to the estate, and killed many people in a frenzy. The red silk and red lanterns from the wedding feast became even redder with blood. His Majesty was very angry, temporarily removed his official position, and had him reflect behind closed doors at home. There are traces of me everywhere in the Alexander estate. By the Jade Fairy Pond in the courtyard, there is a locust tree that I planted by hand 2 years ago. It has been dead for 2 whole years. It made me sad for a long time. Today, it actually sprouted new buds. Alexander looked at that little bit of green on the branches. The corners of his mouth involuntarily lifted. He habitually turned around to look for me, but he found no one behind him. His smile suddenly froze on his face. He turned around and angrily ordered the guards to cut down the locust tree. Alexander hid alone in the study, but the military books and defense maps spread out on the table were filled with my notes. Although my handwriting is crooked, I still carefully marked all the important content. I even copied it into a notebook, to make it convenient for him to reference. Alexander pushed all the books to the floor. He wanted to calm down by copying calligraphy, but his gaze kept drifting towards the window. It seems like I can still do it like before, as if I quietly crouched by the window to watch him. But now, there are only withering roses by the window. There's nothing else. Alexander used to really dislike me. He always wanted to avoid me. Leaving with the Alexander estate. Now he's trapped in the estate, only to realize he has gotten used to this place. When he was lost in thought, it seemed like he saw me linking arms with him, clinging to him to go see the lanterns. I saw him in the military camp tent. I lit candles to draw battle maps for him. I found someone to choose an auspicious date, begging him to marry me. I also saw myself standing in the heavy rain, viciously smashing the hairpin he gave me into 2 pieces. Alexander came back to his senses. Looking down, he found that all the characters on the copybook were Eleanor. He was stunned, suddenly threw away the brush. He had never admitted that he liked Eleanor. He only felt that he still needed her. He thought Eleanor would always follow him, like a little tail that couldn't be chased away. Even if he made her sad time and again, let her suffer grievances. But this time, Eleanor really left him. Alexander ran out of the room. He pushed aside the guard who was chopping the locust tree. His eyes were red. He touched the deep axe marks on the trunk with a pained expression. Victoria was still wearing last night's wedding dress. She stood nearby, watching his every move. The changes that happened overnight were unbearable for her. Her eyes were swollen red. She choked on her words and asked, "Alexander, what do you take me for?" Alexander sat on the stone steps. Without looking back, he said, "Lady Victoria is only interested in my status as a new noble. Do you really feel jealous and sad for me?" Victoria was hit right in the heart. She was both angry and anxious. "You understood long ago, yet you still abandoned Eleanor to marry me. Now that she is gone, who are you pretending for here? It would be better to think about how to win back His Majesty's favor." Alexander didn't care about her. Continue to loosen the soil around the locust tree with the hoe. Victoria rushed over and snatched the hoe away. She slapped Alexander hard. She shouted angrily, "You have let down the deceased. Now am I to let down too?" Alexander's hair was disheveled. His face was flushed. His gaze was vacant. He looked at Victoria, but Eleanor's face appeared before him. His voice was hoarse. He stared at the wedding dress on Victoria and said, "Take off the wedding dress. This is not yours." Victoria looked at Alexander in disbelief. Her proud self-esteem was severely hurt. She tore off the wedding dress and forcefully threw it on Alexander's face. She shouted, "Just live with this regret for the rest of your life." Alexander said nothing. He only had someone clean the wedding dress and carefully put it away. Later, he replaced all the red lanterns in the estate with white silk ones. Victoria initially agreed to marry Alexander. She mainly valued his newly acquired position as a general. Now that the official position is gone, during these days when Alexander was feeling down, she checked the accounts in the estate. Only then did she realize that the Alexander estate had long been out of money. It was just a facade of prosperity. Not only that, she also discovered that before his death, I had sold several profitable shops and fertile fields to Prince Jonathan. Now, the Alexander estate is already just an empty shell. Alexander lost his official position. There is no income. The household is entirely supported by Victoria's dowry. In order to make ends meet, Victoria can only watch her hard-earned savings slowly deplete. This further deteriorated their already unstable relationship. Victoria could no longer tolerate it. She had a complete falling out with Alexander, leaving behind a divorce letter. She left home and returned to the palace. When she heard this news, I wasn't surprised at all. It just came sooner than expected. Prince Jonathan poured me a cup of tea. He asked with a smile, "Are you satisfied now?" I raised my eyebrows. This matter is far from over. The next day, I handed a ledger to Prince Jonathan, to be passed on to His Majesty. The ledger recorded the donations made by officials in the capital during the Texas disaster. All the silver was embezzled by Victoria. The money donated by the Alexander estate is also included. This ledger was something I found on my wedding night. I had my trusted aide incapacitate Victoria. Then I found it at the bottom of her dowry chest. For me, the most important thing is the wedding gown my mother left me. I stored it at the very bottom of the dowry chest for safekeeping. I believe Victoria would have done the same. That's why I took the risk during the excitement and chaos of the wedding, to give it a try. I didn't expect to actually gain something. The embezzled funds were originally meant to save the lives of tens of thousands of people. His Majesty was very angry after seeing the accounts. Victoria was sent back to her fief in Texas. She was also ordered to go to France for a marriage alliance in 3 years. She is never allowed to return to New York for the rest of her life. Alexander was also charged with being an accomplice. The estate was confiscated. He was demoted to a commoner. Before Alexander left the Alexander estate, I quietly went back for a visit. The former Alexander estate was filled with roses. I saw Alexander from a distance, bending over. He was watering the roses in my garden. Each one was growing very well. It's just that everything is too late. I looked at him. Alexander looked very tired. There were a few strands of gray hair at his temples. His gaunt face showed signs of weariness. If it were in the past, seeing him in such despair, I would have felt heartbroken. I might have even forgiven him for all his mistakes. When we meet again, all I feel is indifference. I was just about to leave. He suddenly called out to me. He said, "Eleanor, I've seen you again." I was taken aback for a moment. I turned to look at him. He put down the water bottle and sat on the stone bench. His gaze shifted from me to the roses. "Look, your favorite roses are blooming beautifully." I lowered my eyes. I had long heard that Alexander often had hallucinations after my death. It seems to be true. Now he regards me as a hallucination. I walked up to the roses. There was no longer the joy of the past in my eyes. "Alexander, do you know? Actually, I don't like roses. What I liked back then was just you, who brought me roses." Hearing me speak, Alexander immediately looked up at me, but he only glanced at me. He stood there as if he had lost his soul. His originally dull eyes seemed to suddenly light up. After a brief moment of daze, he spoke with a trembling voice. "Eleanor, you have returned, finally back. They all said you were dead, but I knew they were lying. You forgive me, right?" Alexander put down the kettle. He wanted to pull me into his arms. I instinctively took a few steps back, avoiding his hand. At that moment, Prince Jonathan stood in front of me. He was tall, broad-shouldered, blocking me behind him, but he kept an appropriate distance from me. "Eleanor is no longer here. She is my retainer, Flora." Upon seeing Prince Jonathan, Alexander was frozen in place. It took him a while to come back to his senses. His eyes were red. He stared at the other and said, "It's you. It was you who took her away." Prince Jonathan rarely wore a serious expression. He responded, "It's because you couldn't keep her yourself." Alexander was taken aback for a moment. He quickly looked at me. He carefully took out a rose hairpin from his pocket. He spoke with a tone of pleading I had never heard before. "Eleanor, look. I bought the rose hairpin you wanted. You gave me money to embroider the pouch. I also retrieved it from the bottom of the pond. You are willing to return to the estate. Have you forgiven me?" I quietly looked at him. I said very calmly, "I just came back to get the wedding gown my mother gave me." "Alexander, we can never go back." I saw the light in Alexander's eyes slowly dim. His hand holding the rose hairpin paused in midair, slightly trembling. After the servant brought back the wedding gown, I left with Prince Jonathan, in the empty Alexander estate. Only Alexander is left alone. Alexander stood there like a block of wood, watching me walk further away. Now, he is like me in the heavy rain that day, so helpless, so lost. He reached out his hand, wanting to grab something, but his fingers grasped nothing but air. He caught nothing. The 23rd year of Ming Yue, His Majesty passed away. Prince Jonathan ascended the throne. What surprised everyone the most was, the new emperor actually appointed a female general. Her name is Flora. She cannot wield weapons. She is only responsible for troop deployment and strategic planning. At first, many people did not believe in her, but before long, this female general actually led her troops to reclaim the territory at the border. Over the years, the troops she commanded always managed to defeat stronger enemies with fewer forces, achieving victory consecutively. The neighboring countries no longer dared to invade. From then on, everyone across the nation respects this female general. After the palace banquet, drunk Prince Jonathan watched me leaning against the railing, enjoying the breeze freely. I couldn't help but ask, "It's been so many years. Do you want to try again?" I'm different from Alexander. Speaking of Alexander, I no longer feel anything in my heart. After I left him that day, when the palace guards came to collect the Alexander estate, they cleared everything out of the estate. Even the roses in the yard were not spared. Suddenly, Alexander charged at them like he had gone mad. He refused to let the guards touch those roses. As a result, he was beaten up by the guards for obstructing their duties. Even when he passed out, he still held onto a pot of roses tightly. Later, I heard that Alexander left New York. He went to the riverside in the countryside where we first met. There, he planted a large patch of rose bushes. They planted a large area of rose trees there. As for Victoria, I heard that she had 4 children with King Liang in France over 5 years. After old Wang passed away, his younger brother became the new king. Victoria became the new king's wife again. A few days ago, a spy from France reported. It seems she is pregnant again. Prince Jonathan looked at me for a while without saying anything. He smiled wryly and shook his head. It's nothing. It's nothing. All these years, Prince Jonathan has never appointed a queen. I know what he is thinking, but I don't want to rely on anyone anymore. I raised my glass and smiled at him. I said, I will always be loyal to your majesty. Prince Jonathan was taken aback for a moment. He also raised his glass in response to me. The soft candlelight illuminated his gentle face. He said, I will always wait for you. I smiled but didn't respond. I just finished the drink in one gulp. I don't want to worry about love anymore. I just hope to remain carefree and cheerful forever. May the world be at peace.